Harry's Wife, part 102.73. Is he kind? What she really meant. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Yes, this is big news indeed. You'll recall that when the engagement interview took place, and do see parts pass him for a detailed examination of that cringe fest, there was, of course, the strange response that Harry's wife gave with regard to questions. It was revealed that a mutual friend set them up, and Harry's wife stated, "I didn't know much about him," which we now know, of course, was a lie, but then she stated, "I just asked, is he kind? Because if he wasn't kind, I didn't really see there was any point." Now, of course, many people at the point of watching that interview thought, what a strange thing to comment about. Is he kind? Stating, if he wasn't kind, I didn't see that there was really any point. And some people would think, well, on the face of it, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You don't want to be with someone who's an out-and-out twat. So you do want somebody that's kind. Other people would say, but generally that's a given, isn't it? That you would think that somebody would be kind. Your default position isn't to think that I am automatically getting involved with one of Satan's underlings. And you would think to yourself, that's a really strange thing to ask about somebody. Is he kind? And then to further add, because if he wasn't kind, I didn't really see there was any point. And it was a little bit of a head-scratcher for people. They wondered, what on earth is it that she could have meant by that? Was there some kind of joke being made there? Was it an in-joke between her and Harry? Was it a joke between her and the person that she was speaking to about it? Did it mean something else? And I know that other people have considered, in a way that they talked about, we were just roasting a chicken, for example, and that has found its way from the Urban Dictionary to demonstrate it means something else as opposed to preparing a particular form of poultry for consumption. They wondered, was this reference to is he kind being a reference to something else? Was there something more unusual going on? Was it an in-joke? Was it a euphemism? Was it a provocation at somebody else? And many people have foundered upon wondering what she meant by this comment, because it still doesn't really stack up. It seems like a strange thing to say. Well, I'm pleased to note that as a consequence of my own examination of this, and certain inquiries that I have made, that I can explain to you precisely what was meant by this, and when I reveal to you what it does mean, the comment actually makes perfect sense. When she asked, is he kind? Because if he wasn't kind, I didn't really see there was any point. She wasn't talking about whether Harry was nice, whether he was compassionate, whether he was a decent human being. Oh no. She wasn't talking about whether he would be there protecting the little puppies, that he would be somebody that would be on board with her bananatarian adventures. No. Not at all. She wasn't thinking that he would be there, wanting to hold her hand and be gentle towards her, that he would be engaging in certain compassionate activities that would assist with facade management. No. When she asked, is he kind, she was referencing an acronym. What she was really asking, in terms of the use of is he kind, was, is he a kid in need of direction? K-I-N-D. And then, when you put that in context, is he a kid in need of direction? Because if he isn't or wasn't a kid in need of direction, I didn't really see there was any point. And what she was asking of her friend was simply this. Am I dealing with a man-child that is very easy to manipulate, that is easy to get control of, that is easily to make mine and do my bidding. Now remember, she is of course an unaware narcissist, but her narcissism does allow her from time to time to knowingly engage in behaviours to get her way. For example, she was well aware that she selected the same perfume that was worn by Diana, Princess of Wales, in order to appeal to Harry on that first or early date. Her narcissism allowed her that knowledge of select this to draw him in. She doesn't know that she's doing it for the prime aims. She's no idea what the prime aims are. She doesn't know that she's doing it for control, fuel, character traits, or residual benefits. What she understands is, I'm doing this to make him mine because I see him as a good catch. Her narcissism allows her to know that. Many of her, or the majority of her manipulations, she's completely oblivious to. And I know that many people struggle to understand that, not because they're stupid, but it just seems so odd. But most of her manipulations she's not aware of because they have to be instantaneous. But there's one or two sprinkled around where her narcissism lets her know, or allows her to know, that she's engaging in a form of manipulation. But it doesn't actually happen very often. Here, it wasn't letting her know, you are a narcissist and you're doing this for the prime aims. But what it was doing was enabling her to ascertain, is this a guy that I can make mine? And therefore, between her and the person that she was asking, she wanted to determine that essentially, was he a kid in need of direction? And that would mean that basically he was a lost soul that needed a mother. That needed a mother figure that would come along and soothe his fevered brow and explain to him that she understood that he was cut adrift in the world. After all, he was the spare with no direction. That he had suffered loss as a consequence of the early demise of his mother, and therefore that had almost left him in a somewhat childlike state, in need of guidance, in need of direction. That he felt on the outside of the royal family at times, and therefore he needed somebody to take him by the hand and lead him up the garden path, not that she would see it that way, but lead him in a particular way. And therefore her inquiry about is he kind was simply to ask, is he somebody who is like a big kid who's lost his way? Because if he isn't, then that's going to make it difficult for me to make him mine. But if he is, so much the better, because then I can be that mother figure to him. And as you know, so many people have commented about the fact that he in effect has married his mother, that he keeps banging on about his mother, and as I've explained to you in parts passing, how Harry's wife has of course utilised his vulnerability at having lost his mother and that raw wound that still exists as a means to assert control over him and draw fuel from him, acquire character traits and residual benefits. It has made him particularly susceptible to her subconscious and instinctive manipulative wiles. She recognised that he needed to be mothered, and she did so out of false compassion, that her narcissism compelled her to feel sorry for him, and also, however, recognise that that was a good way of drawing him in and making him hers, of cementing the relationship and securing that aim of wealth and status. She doesn't realise that those are residual benefits, but her narcissism does allow her to realise that she wanted to move up in the world, that she wanted more money and she wanted to be famous. It allows her to know those things without her knowing that they are part of the prime aims, without them knowing that they are residual benefits. And enabling her to achieve that, it causes her to understand that she needed to go and get someone bigger and better, and that one way of doing so would be to find an individual who was vulnerable in terms of having somebody come along and guide them, direct them, mother them. And therefore, the reference to him being a kid in need of direction was as a consequence of her narcissism homing in on this as a particular route of manipulation to find a vulnerable, aimless, lost individual, and for her to plug that gap in his world by demonstrating that she understood his vulnerabilities, that she understood what it was like for him, and that she was his saviour, that she was there to ensure that he needn't feel lost in the world any longer, that he had a shoulder to cry on, that there was somebody who understood and comprehended his loss, Also, of course, throwing plenty of spicy poontang at him at the same time. And of course, if he wasn't a kid in need of direction, then it would be far more difficult to reel him in, and she therefore would be better looking elsewhere. Accordingly, when she asked the question about is he kind, and about the fact of whether if he wasn't kind there would be no point, it all came down to this. It was an acronym known between her and the person that she was speaking to determine whether he was essentially a lost soul that could be brought under her wing. Was he a kid in need of direction? I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.